I'm your host, Holback McFleur. How do you spell McFleur? Figure it out, and this is a job for the editor, not for me. I don't need to know how to spell my own name. Tesla's been working with AMD to create some AI for their own self-driving cars. You know, NVIDIA had their AI going. And one of the big problems with AI is that a lot of it currently relies upon just GPS technology and sensing of different big objects on the road. It's very difficult to deal with harsh weather conditions and potholes and stuff like that. You're driving down the road, the sensors aren't really sophisticated enough to know that there's a pothole this big right there, and so you end up slamming into the pothole. If you're in New England and the winter's just over, there's potholes everywhere, right? So if you're not drunk, you drive around like you're drunk, dodging potholes. But this car is going to go down the road straight and just hit all of them. Well, that's one of the problems that they're solving with powerful hardware from AMD and NVIDIA and that sort of thing. So Tesla working together with AMD is an interesting development, since NVIDIA's kind of had a pretty big head start on the AI of artificial, the AI of artificial intelligence. God, I'm saying some good today. Good manure. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of this partnership between Tesla and AMD. All right, guys. The W3C is now dead. If you're a web developer, you know that the W3C comes up with the standards that are used by all the browsers so that none of them have any special weirdness and everyone can just use the same code on the internet. And they come up with all the standards that are used everywhere. Well, they have decided to side with the big media companies, the RIA and all that sort of thing, and make DRM part of the standard. Now, I know this seems like, well, I guess websites can just have DRM built in. You got Netflix with DRM and Amazon with DRM and that sort of thing. Yeah, but it's something that's built into those actual websites. It's not really built into the standard. And the implications of what can happen with this are not really fully apparent at the moment, but there's lots and lots of room for abuse and false positives and that sort of thing. And just being able to stifle users who legitimately want to use copyrighted material for legal like criticism or for use in compilations or for use for study and examination and that sort of thing. It's going to be very difficult, and it'll make it very easy for the copyright holders and the big companies like I said, the RIA and the MPAA, Motion Picture Association of America and all that stuff, to really just lock down on a lot of the content on the internet. And it removes the power from the user and the person who makes the website, and just sort of puts all the power over into the wrong hands. But here's the interesting thing. The WC3, well, they're not like any official body. They're just people who have made the standard up until right now. And so they have mucked up enough that now someone else can step in. And people are saying maybe the EFF will step up with the next batch of, general stuffs for everyone to use. But who's going to step up right now? Someone can step up, and the W3C can just become completely irrelevant overnight. That would be really interesting if that did happen, because they've got a lot of standards, but that's what we need at this point, because they are obviously in the wrong pockets. And also, normally when they do these votes on new standards and stuff, they rely on a consensus, which needs a pretty heavy majority. But this time they just took a vote. It was 58% that said yes, and they were like, we're going to abandon our old consensus, and now we're just going to take that and go with it. So things have changed a lot over there. We've talked about this once before, and I keep talking about this stuff because the future of food fascinates me. When you get this many people and you want them all to eat, what are you going to do for the future? How are you going to change the carbon footprint of the meat industry and that sort of thing? And there's a lot of different solutions out there. One is growing actual meat in laboratories, growing the muscles, growing the best cuts of meat. And then another company here called Impossible, they're making their Impossible Burger. And we've talked about this before, but this is pretty close to production. So the Impossible Burger, actually it kind of is in production right now, uses something called the hemi or whatever. It's basically like the blood essence, and you get some of that in the root of the soy plant. And they extract that, and they've actually bioengineered some yeast to produce lots and lots of this. It's essentially
the blood of the plant.
And that sounds like a vegan black metal band. We are
the blood of the plant.
And so would you eat wheat protein with the blood of the plants made to taste like a real burger? Would you eat that? That's what gives you that iron taste? All right, moving right along then. Equifax, right? So Equifax was hacked, and they lost lots of your information. Equifax is, a company that they basically have all the credit records and that sort of thing. So they have a lot of your information, your social security number, your credit card numbers, and they lost 143 million people's information due to hackers. But check this out. Not only was some of their passwords just like admin and password on a lot of their devices in different places in the world, they actually had that on some of their routers and stuff. They have a Twitter account, and someone went online and set up a fake phishing account called securityequifax2017.com instead of their actual account, page with all the details and information called equifaxsecurity2017.com. Now, he created this page because it's easy to accidentally get to, and he wanted to just sort of test and see if people would actually come there and just, put their private information online. The idea is you could go and search to see if you'd been compromised, and all you have to do is log on and put your private information in there, and it would search the database for your private information to see if it was compromised. Well, that's an easy way to phish. And okay, here's the funny part. So yeah, there's going to be phishing websites out there that are all different sorts of, typos and different things like that. The official Equifax Twitter account actually tweeted this out. They tweeted out the freaking phishing site instead of the regular site, telling users that they could go there for more information to see if they've been hacked. The official Equifax Twitter page, the one that's officially owned by Equifax, never mind. Why is everybody so damn stupid? All right, so let's talk about smartphones for just a minute. Google is buying yet another smartphone thing. Well, they bought Motorola for like $12 billion, but that didn't really work out so well. Motorola's devices were kind of like, not much came out of that. But Google is dying for hardware innovation, and so they didn't buy all of HTC. They just bought the HTC Pixel division. They're mostly looking for the people involved. They didn't buy the factories, the manufacturing plants, or anything like that, but they've got around 2,000 employees right now through this deal. And what they're going to do with this is they're going to try to do some R&D and come up with new devices for their new Pixel, because Apple's got all this cool new stuff with their phone, and Google needs to make sure they can compete with all of the Apple innovation or whatever, like the face scanning stuff and all that horrifying business. Google's like, we need to get on some of that horrifying stuff right there too. So this is a much better deal than Motorola, but HTC, you've got like a lot of competition from major Chinese brands like, Huawei and Xiaomi, and just there's a lot of Chinese brands that are pushing, I guess, a lot farther than, Google is and HTC is. But so I don't know how confident I am in this, but it is interesting that they're doing a lot more with their hardware. Have you seen the time?
Is it rant 30 already?
Yes. Okay, guys, Ajit Pai, the dude who's in charge of the FCC, the guy can do no right, and sometimes he does something that's just so stupid that you want to pull your hair out. And right now they've been defending what they said a while back, but I want to just revisit this because it's still a thing. The FCC has a problem where, 25 megabits download as a standard for fast internet. That's what everybody in the country needs, whereas the previous FCC boss said that's what we need in the country. Well, they're having trouble rolling that out because it turns out that a lot of the ISPs out there would rather waste their money buying each other or flying fat cats around the world, or I don't know what they're spending their money on, hooker and blows. Yes, hooker and blows. It's so difficult for those guys to do that. So Ajit Pai is saying, like, listen, let's just lower the terms to 10 megabits a second. So that'll fix the problem. We'll just redefine what fast is, and then we won't have to worry about it because 10's fast now because we said 10 is fast. Oh, God, guys. And he's also saying that we don't need wired infrastructure. We can just put the little antenna on the roof. And I just want to chime in for just a second here to remind everyone out there who possibly could agree with this. I'm not sure who the hell is going to agree with this. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. If we don't upgrade our infrastructure, and I'm talking like not just with this, just with pretty much everything, we're going to be left behind. The USA is going to be left behind. I mean, pretty much all we do now is run around with our giant-shaped bombs and go, look at us, look at us, look at us. We don't need to do any development at home. We're busy blowing up the world and rebuilding it. But if we don't snap that and actually start putting some money into infrastructure, the rest of the world's just going to be like, oh, look at you in the dark ages. We have funny accents because we are not from there. Elon Musk has a solution. He's like, well, screw this. We'll just put thousands of satellites up in the air. We'll spend $10 billion on this, and boom, Starlink. So he's trying to get a patent for, just right out of his pocket, just trying to get a patent for Starlink. So Starlink's going to be I guess, a network of satellites that's going to be in low orbit. I believe they're going to be around 70 miles up. It might be kilometers, but yeah, low Earth orbit. You know, at those distances, the latency's not going to be nearly as bad as like a big satellite floating around up there, but you're going to have a much larger network. So if you've got 60 satellites in low Earth orbit, you're going to have a lot of satellites all over the place. Good latency and hopefully pretty good speeds, but this could be a really interesting way to get good internet and a viable alternative to the crap that we have right now. So I'll have to see what goes on with that. Now, there's another strange part of this. If you actually look at the technology they're going to be using and then what they're trying to get patented, well, it's not just internet. It's also like some surveillance technology and cameras. So we're talking like 60 satellites of surveilling power, guys. It's already connected to the net. It already knows who you are. And now there are going to be cameras that can probably zoom right down and see what you're doing, what you're eating. There are cameras from the fourth dimension that can see through your walls. But now Elon Musk will have them. What's Elon Musk going to be doing with these things? Let's go see what we're playing. We got some pretty interesting games to talk about this week. Oh, I have another hand. Ah, yes, the game that I have yet to clear out my schedule for, but need to as soon as possible, Divinity 2.
Yes.
There it is.
Quite Divinity 2. I'm going to go out here and fight these things.
All right, so if you haven't played Divinity, the game looks kind of like an isometric game, like Baldur's Gate or Neverwinter Nights and something like that, but the combat is really, really what hooked me, other than the fact that I think that, the actual stories and that sort of thing are pretty much a ton of fun. The quests are deep. But the combat is turn-based, and if you're someone who's played a lot of tabletop, this is going to feel, really similar to that. Nailed it. Well, that was a...
Wow,
was that
quick.
It? So what level are you on right now?
I'm level, 17. You have a party of 4. You get to choose, you get to build your party with different powers and stats and stuff like that.
You just cast Rain over there.
Yep. So
there
you get to you get to build with all your different strengths, finesses, combat abilities, civil abilities, and talents to build out your team. Each race has their own different abilities and stuff like that too on top of it. And you go into this super expansive world that has billions of things happening in it at all times, which is pretty awesome.
It's a very, very high fantasy game, which is something that I'm not wild about, but the gameplay hooked me enough that I kept coming back.
I didn't really play a lot of the first one, so this was my first kind of jump into this thing.
I'll tell you, the interface overhaul is really nice.
Yeah.
First thing you'll notice on the bottom right here is that instead of having multiple different, bottom bars you have to scroll through, they've just added a lot of boxes to this one.
I mean, they do have, I can scroll down if I need to.
Oh, you have even more pages, but they just added a lot to the bottom.
And I really enjoy it. I mean, I'm a big fan of tabletop stuff, so, this is kind of up my alley. The storyline's funny and full and has a lot of good detail into it. You get to make cool decisions that will affect your characters and stuff like that. It's really
And the game's probably too big to go into right now, but you have a favorite element of the game, or
favorite element of the game? I really enjoy talking to animals. Not gonna lie. One of the powers.
I'm talking about in the game.
One of the powers that you get is from throwback from the old one called Pet Pal, which lets you talk to animals, and the animals have probably the most hilarious conversations that you'll have with anybody, because a lot of times you'll be talking to things and they'll have the mentality of what other animal you're talking to. So when you're talking to chickens, they're dumb as hell because they're chickens,
Right.
Which is really funny. People that can spend a lot of time on games, people that are a fan of RPGs in general, and people that really like tabletop but are maybe can't find a group always to play with or things like that, this is a really great kind of fill-in for that. You get a lot of that team strategy, a lot of that turn-based stuff like you would playing a D&D or a Pathfinder or something like that.
Speaking of all that, the Dungeon Master mode, or what are they called, the Game Master mode?
Yeah, Game Master mode. I haven't actually played around with that yet.
That's something I really want to play with, because it looks a lot like the old Neverwinter Nights, allowing you to build a quest game, insert new items, all kinds of things. But it basically allows someone to create a world that everyone can come in and play in.
Yep.
And that looks like it's going to be a ton of fun, but it's going to require a lot of time from the Game Master. So we'll have to check that out eventually. All right, there you have it, guys. Reviewing games on Steam, it's now a political thing. It's no longer to tell people what you find entertaining. So review bombing is a problem.
Yes. So Steam recently has come out with a nice little fix-all to their review bomb problems in the form of making graphs available for all. Hooray! So what this is it's a graph that you can then kind of
streamlined down to show like when negative reviews were posted and positive reviews, so you can kind of get a feel for like, oh, on this day there were a lot of negative reviews that came out. Maybe it was because some DLC came out that day, or maybe it was because a particular douchebag internet celebrity said a bunch of things and then another company decided that they didn't want to be associated with him anymore, and then a bunch of people that just can't handle the fact that they like a douchebag decided to go and bomb this one particular games thing over and over again to give them a really bad rap, only because they didn't want to be involved with the guy that kept on calling people the N-word.
They're upset about the DMCA takedown notice, but still it's voting. They're voting. It's a political thing here instead of voting on the actual game thing here.
Yeah.
And, you know, should users be allowed to go and do this in the first place is my question. Like, okay, are we allowed to have off-topic reviews? Is that something that's cool? Because I gotta tell you, personally, I'm not cool with off-topic reviews. Okay, like Orson Scott Card, right? He's got political views that I do not agree with. Does that mean I should go boycott all of his stuff and then write negative reviews about like Ender's Game, even though I think it's a great book? I mean, it's a hell of a book. But, you know, does his political view make his book suck? In my opinion, no, it doesn't. And I can write a separate article condemning him for that. And that's how I feel like each piece of art should be seen. But that's my opinion. And if you don't agree with me, you can go suck on a bag of cactuses.
The other thing too is that Kral, the guy that wrote this, I forget what his first name is, he said that like the issue could just be, why don't you just take down the user reviews? Like, why don't you just make that a thing?
Or take down the score.
And take down the score. And he was like, well, we've decided that that wouldn't work because people requested these scores in the first place, and honestly the scores don't 100% reflect the actual game itself. So what they pulled out of there was that the reviews don't actually mean anything a lot of the time. The other downside is that this graph is like hidden down in the store page. Like, you have to do a lot of scrolling, and then you have to click on this little button that's like kind of hidden up in this corner to bring down the graph and do all this other stuff. You still get that same cursory glance of being like, wow, a lot of people hate this game, before you get a chance to even peek at the graph.
Right, they should put the graph toward the top, in my opinion. If that's what they're going to do, and you want to see like, oh, look, in the last 3 weeks, it's 90% negative, but before that it was 99% positive, must be because they didn't localize the game for Russia, which that happened in one of another games, and they got review bombed because the Russian language wasn't available. Oh god, speaking
of terrible things on Steam, this game, which has been out since August 30th, called The Mexican Dream, which is a tower defense game about building a wall that is full of guns and things like that you can then use and upgrade and turn into first-person fire mode to kill Mexicans that are trying to come into America and prevent Americans from leaving America at the same time.
Wait, how is this a bad thing? Oh yeah, loot boxes.
So yeah, this is an article that's calling for what we've been talking about, loot boxes and things like that a lot on the past episodes and stuff like that. And this is an article that's basically calling for, let's call loot boxes what they actually are: gambling. These are, you're playing slots, you are hoping for the best, and you're giving money away to hope that you get something good in return. It's gambling.
It's kind of addicting, like gambling. I mean, I can understand it. I've played PlayerUnknown. I haven't gone out and bought the loot boxes and stuff like that, but you know, every week I get them, and I'm like, oh, I gotta get this thing. But I have been selling stuff. I've made maybe $30-40 selling the crap I get in the crates. But and I did actually buy a key for a Gamescom crate, because I clicked on the Gamescom crate, not realizing you had to buy a key to open it. And that's the one time I felt really awkward, because I was like, I got this thing and it won't let me open it because I clicked on the crate and I spent in-game points. And I didn't realize I had to buy a key, and it was like, I have to buy a key with like real money.
That's where they get you.
Seeing these on different stores, like, I mean, G2A is now doing like a loot box. And it seems to be a thing that's becoming more than normal. You know, like, you give a certain amount per month and you get a mystery prize or a mystery thing, like $10 a month, and you're gonna get a mystery game every month or something like that.
And the different groups and stuff are streaming themselves opening these loot boxes and things like that.
Is that like entertaining?
Yeah, it's apparently entertaining. And also sometimes companies will like structure, because they are in direct control, what loot boxes they got. So like, this one group of people opened up a bunch of randomized loot crates and were getting all this like really amazing stuff out of it.
Oh wow.
And then other people were like, oh my god, that's awesome. Like, oh, I could get all that good stuff too. And all of a sudden they weren't getting anywhere near as good of stuff as the people that were opening it on video. Wonder what that could mean.
I feel like, you know what, go ahead, call it gambling, call it whatever you want. If people do it, whatever. I'm not gonna, who am I to tell them what to do? Go on to our store right now. We've got some mystery packages available for you.
Who knows what's inside them? We don't even know what's inside them.
Blow your mind.
They're just mysteries.
But don't you call it gambling, or I'll come to your house and run really, 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 really fast, jump and slide on your slippery floor, and while I'm going between your legs, I will grab onto whatever I can to swing myself back up into the air, and we know what that is. And land flat in a 3-point stance.
Totally understand.
Stand up and go, whoa. All right, guys, get a shirt for real at bigpants.com. And stay tuned for our hardware, which will be in very soon. It's on a boat right now, coming in. All right, bye, everybody. Super heat.